guys, welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us as always is Jon Campea.
Well, greetings and a most heartfelt of salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you from right here at the Collider Video Studios here in Burbank, California, and we are so happy for Sinead, but that's all I'm going to say.
Also here, Jon Schnepp.
That's right, El Nino and Sinead. El Nino and Falcor. El Nino.
Also here, Kristian Harloff.
I'll one up you. El Sinead. How about
Sinead.
All right, one of the biggest pleasant surprises of 2015 was the 7th installment of the Rocky Balboa series, Creed. All eyes are on the possible sequel, which both MGM and Stallone himself are saying is absolutely happening. However, one major hitch. Director Ryan Coogler is currently in negotiations to possibly direct the upcoming Black Panther movie for Marvel, and Stallone doesn't seem to think that waiting for Coogler to finish that project is going to happen. He said the following: "There's a diminishing time acceptance of a sequel. 3 years is a little much. John, should Creed 2 go ahead and shoot without Coogler as the director, or should they put things on hold until Coogler is done with Black Panther?"
You know, it's a little bit of a different situation because if you go back to the Godzilla situation, Edwards, and, you know, they made the decision with Godzilla that we're going to hold off on Godzilla until Edwards finishes with his Star Wars responsibilities, and then we're going to make it with him. But this isn't the exact same scenario. This is a little bit of a different situation because Godzilla is a property that has been around for 60, 70 years that you can come back and revisit anytime you want. And it's not like the first Godzilla. Well, I enjoyed it and I had fun with it. It wasn't, you know, universally beloved or anything like that. Right. Plus, you didn't have a star in it who's getting awards recognition right now, who, like all of us, is getting older by the minute. Stallone knocked it out of the park with his performance. Michael B. Jordan did too. Coogler as a director did as well. But I think all of us were like most pleasantly surprised that Stallone brought such a heartfelt, emotional tone to his Rocky, to his AO character that made us fall in love with them and all that kind of stuff. And I believe he's right. There is a diminishing return. Now, 3 years for a sequel is a little too long. Well, John, how many years has it been since? Yeah, I understand that. But generally speaking, if you want to capitalize on momentum, 3 years is a bit long. And while I think Coogler is brilliant, it became clear in that interview that Coogler and Stallone are already working on the story for Creed 2 together already anyway. So Coogler becomes an exec producer on it. They go bring in another director. Coogler and Stallone have already made the story. I feel good that it'll still be in good hands. So while sometimes I feel like in the case of Godzilla, waiting for the director to come back is a good idea, in some cases like this one with Creed, I think it's a good idea to just move forward and keep the momentum going. I don't know, Schnepp, what do you think about this whole thing? How would you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as Coogler is involved in writing the screenplay, because he wrote the original screenplay, it's his whole idea to make this Creed film in the first place. He brought it to Stallone, so I feel like he's got to be involved. If it's just a handoff and he's not involved in any way, I feel it diminishes the possibilities of Creed 2 having that same feeling that the first film had and the success that the first film had. As long as he's involved in the story and they get a really adequate or better than adequate director, I think it makes sense to move forward quickly because not only is everyone getting older, Stallone is getting older, and he's at that age where 3 years matters. So, I mean, I don't think they want to wait 3 years to then start principal photography.
Hashtag
so that it comes
3
out.
years matter.
Yeah, it really does. So I hope, and also check out the brand new Godzilla. Toho Studios just released their version of Godzilla.
That's right. Yeah,
it looks like a crazy piranha. So I mean, you know, it's like
not like Fat American.
No,
remember that big complaint?
I know the giant thighs. We don't like the new Godzilla. It's like, look, at least he wasn't an iguana. Remember that one, Emmerich? Anyway,
it makes me nervous. That he looks like an iguana. No, it makes me nervous because I agree with you guys. He's got to be writing it. Coogler, that is. He's got to write it and he's got to produce it. He's got to have a lot of feedback. He was the guy. Stallone wasn't going to do this movie. Stallone said no to him before Fruitvale Station came out. Then he saw Fruitvale Station and showed what a tremendous storyteller he is, and said, okay, let's do it. And they did, and that's why we got what we got. I do think with both him and Stallone, because it is Stallone's world. It is Stallone, the place that Stallone created. So having Stallone there is obviously a huge benefit. But you got to have Coogler, because Coogler has. I mean, I've spoken to him and had him talk and listened to him talk about the Rocky franchise. He is a fan of this franchise. You have to bring in another fan of the franchise. I know sometimes you go, as long as you get a capable director, you've got to bring in a fan, because this is what a fan did for us. He gave us a great movie. He gave us the emotion, and he gave us what the fan of the Rocky series wanted, and also let it stand on its own. So I hope that they can get somebody that can execute that vision as well. But it can work. The question I had though is, because as far as 3 years, that thing, the first Rocky was 75, the second one was like late 78, so that was 3 years. And I know Stallone's getting older, but so was Mick. So
yeah,
so they could still do it. I know it's a different time and you want to capitalize. They could still do it, but why is there so much time in that 3 years? Is it going to prep for Black Panther in 3 years? He can't do anything else? I mean, there are other directors that are pumping out, one movie a year.
We'd have to ask Coogler that.
That's what I mean.
I'm sure he doesn't want to have his dead. The one part about this that does make me nervous, though, here's the one part, is that I've enjoyed Michael B. Jordan. Other than in Fantastic Four, I didn't think he was all that. I thought he kind of mailed it in with Fantastic Four. That's the way I felt. But,
who could blame him?
And who can blame him? But I've liked Michael B. Jordan in just about everything I've seen him in. But without question, to me, the two best performances Michael B. Jordan has ever given has been Fruitvale Station and Creed, both working with Coogler as his director.
Yeah.
So now that's not to say that, Michael B. Jordan is only capable of giving a good performance. No, he's given good performances before, too. I'm just saying my two favorite performances of Michael B. Jordan have been under Coogler. So Coogler not directing him in the next Creed, that's one part I'm going to be a little skittish about and keep my eye on. But like you said, as long as Coogler's there in the writing, the producing, Stallone is still going to be side by side with Michael B. Jordan this time too. So I think it could work out just fine.
I don't think Coogler will walk away from it completely, though. I think he loves it too much.
But you know what? You mentioned, like, why can't he do both projects? Because, I mean, it sounds like, 3 years, that's a lot of time to work on something. Like, James Gunn has been working on Guardians of the Galaxy. He can't work on anything else. Why? Because not only is he having meetings every day on the script, and then he's on casting, and then he's checking out props,
and he's been living on set now for like the last 2 months.
That's all I'm saying is it's an all-encompassing job. When you're directing something, you are the manager of everything. Editing, storyboards, designs, casting.
Sure, but there are other directors that do big projects that are working like once a year as well too. I mean, there's a lot.
I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it's very difficult, and especially with something like Black Panther, I'm sure it's going to be a very large.
Yeah, Black Panther isn't like, say, what was that one, Much Ado About Nothing, that one Joss Whedon project?
Yeah, you could bust it out in 2 weeks.
We can go work on it for three months maybe, get it all wrapped up like a Marvel film, a Black Panther film. I gotta assume that's going to tie up an awful long a lot of his time.
A lot of shooting setups, and I mean, just once they go into production, it's probably going to be a 60 to 90 day production.
Right.
So I mean, it's like, and then he has to be in charge of editing all those things. So, it depends. Yeah, I mean, he might not tie up all 3 years, but like he probably couldn't get into, like, maybe they're working on the script right now before he signs on to do Black Panther. Then he might have to let it go, come back after production. It all depends on how they're able to work their stuff out. So.
All right, what's next?
The Producers Guild of America has just released their list of nominees for their annual PGA Awards, coming up on January 23rd. Here are their list of nominees for their version of Best Picture: The Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Ex Machina, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Sicario, Spotlight, and Straight Outta Compton. Kristian, what do you think of the PGA nominees list?
Love the nominee list. The only one really missing is what we were just talking about, and that's Creed. I would have liked to see Creed get a little love, but I think that's a pretty appropriate list. I was looking at that list, and I have a lot of those movies in my top 10 this year. I think it's a really solid list.
Yeah, I like the list. I do. But and for me, the two that are kind of dubious by their absence there is Creed and is Hateful Eight. I think a lot of people thought that might have been in there as well. But I like everything in here. So glad Spotlight's in there. That's probably going to be my favorite going into Oscar season. So it's good to see there. It's a good, solid list.
Yeah, Hateful Eight obviously was one for myself missing. I thought, some of the other ones like Trumbo should have been in there, I thought. I mean, there's some other, like, not giant budget films, but like middle of the road films that got released that I think were really well done and really well made. So, I mean, Carol's another one. I don't know if that was listed.
I don't think Carol was on the list, actually. Now I think about it.
I mean, when you think about, I was just going to say,
I didn't adore Carol. I thought the performances in it were stellar, but I didn't, the picture as a whole, I felt the same way about Trumbo too. I
felt the same way about Danish Girl. The three of those movies, I thought that solid performances. Movie okay.
All right, folks, we reached that part of the show now for buy or sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Ash, she's got a few other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down, and those of us at the table are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Ashley, what do we got?
Speaking of the aforementioned Sylvester Stallone, on top of chatting about Creed 2, Sly also took a moment to address the long-awaited Rambo V film that he has talked about several times over the last few years. Stallone seemed to indicate that a new Rambo is off the table for him now. When he thought, he says, "Stay home," he says. "It's like fighters that go back for one last round and get clobbered. Leave it to someone else." Schnepp, buy or sell Stallone's decision to walk away from Rambo?
Man, I have to, abide by what Stallone says. I don't want to see anyone else play Rambo, but I am bummed that he is not doing a Rambo 5 because I so thoroughly enjoyed Rambo 4. They should have just called it Rambo Exploding Heads by Arrows. Exploding Arrowheads. There were liquid bodies is another thing I could have subtitled it. Bodies become liquid. It was so much fun because it was action packed, but it had that exploitative nature that I always wanted to see them go with Rambo, where it's like, look, there's something going bad. We're gonna help. Let's get the whole crew together. We got these mercenaries, and then just insanity, super violence, and violence done the right way, the way you should do violence cinematically, over the top, crazy madness. So, Rambo to me was so much fun. I was hoping that he would do one more Rambo with Stallone. I don't know. I'm kind of bummed out. Stallone, come on, man. You got it in you. You could do it,
How many weapons are you bringing? None. You ain't changing nothing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the line. Like, look, Rambo 4 was like Rocky 6 that gets announced, and we're like, oh, come on. Really, Sly? You're going back to that well again? And then Rocky 6 comes out, and it's like arguably maybe one of the best. I loved Rocky 6 so much. And then Rambo 4 comes out and is like, oh my God, he just embraced the ridiculousness of it all.
Yeah.
And they just went so uber violent. That one scene where he's just standing up there with the big gun, I lost count of how many dudes he kills and slaughters and liquefies with that gun. And it's just so much fun. But I'm going to buy his statement. I'm going to buy it because he's he's done 4 Rambo films. He's got another Expendables he's working on. He's now receiving accolades for his performance as Rocky once again. And he might be thinking, you know what? Maybe I can slow down a little bit. Maybe I can just do these other types of acting roles where I don't have to, swallow 7 raw eggs every day and work out for 4 hours a day and maybe I can slow down a little bit now. And if that's the case, why not wrap up the Rambo series on a high note like you did with Rambo 4?
Right.
So if they announced Rambo 5 was coming out tomorrow, I would go get in line tonight to see it. But all other things being considered, I do buy his statement, and I support you, Sly.
I love Sly. I'm selling this. I am selling it. Rambo needs a Ryan
Rambo is forever.
Yes. No, he needs a Ryan Coogler type guy. A guy that's out there who has a great pitch for the Rambo movie, because I don't think the story is over yet, because it ended with him going back to the States and going to his dad's ranch. And what it looked like they were going to do. Yeah, what it looked like they were going to do was go back to First Blood and the simple story of First Blood. That's how I'd like to see the end of Rambo, to where it doesn't. Yeah, you're going to have that type of violence, and that's even, you put something like The Expendables next to Rambo. They're 2 different movies.
Totally. Very different.
Yes, you have that kind of crazy violence in Rambo, but there's also, Stallone also didn't make it so over the top to where Rambo couldn't be doing everything he was doing in Rambo 2. He goes, I'm old, and I'm going to get on the gun and just go like this. And that's all he does. And even the whole part is like, fire every shot. What? Fire every shot. He just screams and he yells, and then he gets in and he kicks ass. But I want to see him do it in more of a simple, going back to First Blood.
Full circle, yo.
That's the way it ends. Like the way David Morrell, by the way, that book, First Blood, the book is phenomenal. And then that came out in 1972. If you guys have never read the book, First Blood, do it. And it's such a different take. Rambo's a very different guy. But I would like to see that come to a head, and I think that Stallone should be the guy that closes. I don't want to see another reboot I don't want to see a reboot of Rambo. No. I'd need to see Stallone finish the story.
I would love
about-
to see. I love that idea too. I love it coming full
So
circle.
sell it, Schnepp.
Yeah,
About-
I'd sell it.
About 2 years ago, he was talking. There was a lot of rumors going around, and I think some of them were even then verified later by Stallone himself, that they were looking at the next Rambo story was going to him back in the States, and now having taken on like a Mexican drug
White
cartel.
supremacists at one point too.
And well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was white supremacists at one point. It was Mexican drug cartel at another point. So they clearly batted this idea around for a long time, but. Oh, well, it's time for Rambo to ride off into the sunset. All right, what's next?
The first official poster for the upcoming Matthew McConaughey film Free State of Jones has hit the web. Set during the Civil War, the Free State of Jones tells the story of defiant Southern farmer Newt Knight and his extraordinary armed rebellion against the Confederacy. Banding together with other small farmers and with the assistance of local slaves, Knight launched an uprising that led Jones County, Mississippi to secede from the Confederacy, creating a Free State of Jones. John, buy or sell this first poster for Free State of Jones.
Oh God, I love it. I buy it. Huge buy for me. The intensity in it. There's something about. I feel like I know this character now from one single frame. He looks a little bit like Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy. Though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
When you look at it,
Yeah.
I forget the character's name, and I love that freaking show. But
Grizzleface.
yeah,
Wasn't that his
whatever.
name?
If you told me that was a Sons of Anarchy poster, I would totally buy it. So yeah, artistically, it's beautiful. I feel like I'm looking into the dude's soul. I feel like I get a sense of the intensity of the movie itself. It's just a good looking poster. So for me, I buy it. What about you, Schnepp?
I mean, I buy it not as intensely as you. I think it's a good poster. I like that it's just straight up him staring and like it's a dirt like filled face that's like
Yeah.
a determination is in the face that as far as a face goes, I buy it. I don't know if I buy like it's selling me on what it is because I'm like it's a dude staring at me and he looks angry, but it's intense. So as far as for a very first poster, I like it. So I'll buy it.
I gotta sell it. It looks like they caught him in the middle of playing his bongo drums. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I want to see the movie. The movie sounds great, but it's him like staring at. They do this so much for posters now. It's just the face. Like they don't know what to do. They don't know how to sell the movie, so they just.
You think that's just a face, though?
It might make so much more, and it might make much more sense after you see the movie, to where you go back and you go, yeah, okay, now I get it. But you're selling me the movie now.
Right.
I just know it's McConaughey. I know that he can make intense faces. I don't know anything about this movie at all from seeing the poster. But
I'm just looking at the
movie.
Revenant poster right behind you. It's very similar to where it's just an intense face in an environment.
And he's cold. But I know he's cold.
You know he's cold and he's angry. He's cold. He's
Yeah.
angry. He's got an injury on his nose. So.
But look, I mean, the difference with that poster, though, too. When you look at that poster with the Revenant, and I'm kidding, but I'm also being serious. That I know that he's freezing. And I also know in the back with the trees and everything
Yep.
too. I know a little bit more about the
Sure.
movie, as where he's just staring, and I don't know what it is.
I think the look on his face, the grit on his face, the dirt on his face. Yeah, I like it. Okay, what's next? Oh, by the way, it's Tiggy. How did I forget Tig? It's Tig. That's
Tiggy.
exactly. It's Tig, man. Tiggy. Okay.
The box office watch on Star Wars The Force Awakens continues. As of this moment, The Force Awakens sits just $10 million behind Avatar for the #1 all-time domestic box office title and should surpass it in the next day or two. But even more importantly this week, The Force Awakens passed both Furious 7 and the original Avengers movie to climb into the #4 spot on the all-time worldwide box office record list, just $130 million behind Jurassic World for the #3 spot, but still $650 million behind Titanic for the #2 spot, and over $1.2 billion behind Avatar for the #1 spot. Kristian, as we are approaching Star Wars' 4th weekend in release, buy or sell that The Force Awakens can catch Avatar for the #1 all-time worldwide spot.
Man, it's gonna be a tough fight, but I'm still buying it. I'm gonna stick to my guns here. It's gonna be tough, and I do think it's got a good shot of making $1 billion domestically. It's got a shot. That would be something all in itself. It's going to be the champion here domestically. So that's one thing at least takes away from it. But it's going to be very hard. I think that it'll catch Titanic for sure. I'm still saying it's going to beat Avatar because I went and I saw it again for the 4th time yesterday, and there were a bunch of screenings happening still where I was,
yeah.
and it wasn't packed in my screen, but I also went like 3 o'clock. But there was still a significant amount of people for the one that I was at, and then as I was getting out, there were more people shuffling into the 6 o'clock right afterwards. So I think people are still going to those repeat viewings. I heard some guy after, this is my 2nd time, it's my 3rd time. People are going back and seeing this movie again and again and again. So I think it has a very good shot of doing it, but it will be tough.
Yeah, I also got to stick to my guns and sell that it's going to. I've never thought that Star Wars. I mean, certainly within the realm of possibility, and you could not say that about many movies. But I've always been very dubious of the idea that that $2.7 billion, man, that is an astronomical number. And next weekend you're probably going to see Star Wars: Force Awakens probably make around 60. And that's if it only has a 30% drop, because it's been averaging about 40% drop from week to week. So if it does 30%, it's down to 60. It's going to easily catch Avatar. And I agree with you. I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be tough, and it's certainly not a sure thing. But I do think Star Wars: Force Awakens will become the first film in history ever to reach $1 billion domestically. It's still got a long way to go. It's got to make over 300 million, or around 300 million more. But I think it is definitely within the realm of possibility. But that having to make another, on top of all the money it's already made, and its receipts now are in decline, which all films are after 4 weeks.
Did it come out in China yet?
China's the last one. It did come out in India, but
right.
China, its record biggest box office ever was $390 million. So it's that needing $1.2 billion more than what they've already got. I'm going to stick with my sell. I don't think it'll catch it. Schnepp, what do you think?
I'm gonna say it's gonna catch it. I think
it's Nostradamus over here, so I'm liking what you're saying.
Opens in China on Friday, by the way. Opens in China on Friday.
I think China will probably make 300 million over its run. If not, I mean, here's what: if China makes 600 million, and then the rest of everything slows down to what it, how it's just slowly going down.
Well, if China makes 600 million, it's going to catch Avatar. I'll tell you right now, it's going to catch Avatar.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's like we don't know what what it's going to do in China. China's giant, and we don't know how many theaters it's playing in. So it's a guessing game right now. But I think it'll obviously beat the U.S. The U.S. it'll be number one. It'll get $1 billion. I feel very positive about that. I think because of the when Avatar came out, it's just so many things have changed just within the last 10 years. Just like streaming and how home video sales, and they were advertising The Force Awakens. You could buy the DVD and Blu-ray when the movie came out.
Yeah,
you could pre-order it.
Yeah.
That was not happening 10 years ago. Avatar was in theaters for a year.
8 months.
Yeah.
8 full months.
Yeah, before they ever talked about, look, now it's available on Blu-ray. That's what I'm saying. It's a different world we live in, so it's definitely affecting the box office in that way. But I think because of word of mouth and because of the excitement over this film and because of the repeat viewings, I think it has the chance. So I'm guessing that it will actually overtake Avatar globally and not just in the U.S. I did want to mention something about that picture with Rey and the blue lady. You see that?
Navi?
Yeah, everyone's been mentioning that's a Phillips head screwdriver on the
top left.
Yeah, it's actually called a Quanzel in Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Well, thank you for the
Yeah,
insight.
just want to because people keep saying Phillips head. It's a Quanzel. So.
I should say this. Its chances of catching Avatar really rest with what happens in China.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I've been told the last couple of weeks by a bunch of people, and I don't know this myself, but this is what I'm being told, that China is not Japan. The Japanese love Star Wars. Star Wars is not as big in China. But Lucasfilm has been doing a full court press marketing in China. They've sent all the stars over there. They've had a couple of carpet events in China. They have really been pushing very, very, very hard. So I think by this time on Monday, we're going to have a little bit more clear. I think we're going to know for sure. Yeah, absolutely it's going to catch, or absolutely it's not. I think Monday we're going to know the answer to that. All right, what's next?
We are now about 12 weeks from the release of the highly anticipated Batman vs. Superman, and actor Henry Cavill was recently asked if any of the themes or story points in the new film are responses to the criticism some people had with Man of Steel. Cavill said the following: "The reception of my first Superman movie, from what I've read, was fairly mixed. Everyone I've spoken to enjoyed the movie, but not unlike if you're going to meet a stranger in the street, they're not going to badmouth you to your face. There's no intentional move, I don't think, in Batman vs. Superman to address any issues that people had with Man of Steel. It's just a continuation of that storyline, and they continue to develop that world and introduce new characters." Schnepp, buy or sell Cavill's comments?
Yeah, I buy his comments. I think, did Man of Steel, and then obviously Man of Steel 2 was announced, and we all thought that it was going to be a Superman-centric film, and it was, for all intents and purposes, until they got into the story beats, and someone mentioned something about, delivering some kryptonite to Wayne Manor, and that just got everybody, excited about, why not, the Bale Batman's ending, why not introduce Batman, and that just jump-started this whole film into becoming Batman v Superman. So that's why it took an extra year to even get all of this, released. And now we're seeing it finally in like less than 3 months. So I'm sure Cavill was disappointed that it wasn't just a Man of Steel 2 sequel, because he has to share the spotlight with a lot of other characters now. But I feel very positive that eventually, like maybe even January 19th, they'll announce Man of Steel 2 and The Batman, when those films are actually going to be coming out within the DC superhero pipeline. So I don't think that this is anything like, that Man of Steel sucked, so we're not going to do a Man of Steel 2. I think it's just, like what he said, it's a natural progression of the storyline, but also a way to introduce all these new characters into the universe.
Yeah, let's be clear. Man of Steel is freaking awesome. I love Man of Steel. I love that movie. I'm unapologetic about it, and I like it more and more every single time I watch it. That being said, that doesn't take away from the truth that it did get mixed reactions from people.
Totally.
But right from the beginning that we saw, I know when you and I saw Man of Steel, a lot of us were saying right from the beginning, before we heard about another movie or anything, it was like, I bet all that stuff that happened is going to play into the storyline of the next movie. All the destruction we saw, all that is going to feed into, that was all for a reason.
Yeah.
That was all for a purpose. It's going to feed in. So I totally buy Henry Cavill's comments when he says that I do not believe anything that we're going to see in Batman v Superman is a reaction to the fans' reaction. I think it's just an extension of the plan that they had. I think they always wanted to have this alien just showed up, and we always forget about that by the end of Man of Steel. This, first of all, Clark just became Superman, and two, the world is just really seeing Superman for the first time, and now all this crap goes down. This is obviously going to play into the narrative of the next movie. This has to be addressed. So I do believe what he's saying. This was not a reaction. This was part of the plan. Anyway, Kristian, how do you see it?
I buy his comments as well, and I think that it's one of these things we have to remember. We've talked about it many times. Is that the DCU is playing catch up to Marvel, and I think that there's been a plan for a very long time as well. Here's what we need to do in order to catch them, and I think that there's probably conversations that they were having. Well, look, what if in the next one we got to bring in Batman eventually? What if we just go at this point, just don't do the Man of Steel sequel now. Let's do Batman v Superman. Introduce Batman to the audience. I think that there's probably conversations that were happening maybe anyway. So then it makes sense to it, because I also think that I don't necessarily know if Henry Cavill's upset that they went Batman v Superman. We'll never know. We'd have to obviously ask him. But I think that this to him, I think, is going to get even more of the spotlight as him. We know he signed on for Superman because he's made that that we talked about it on Movie Talk shows back.
Yeah.
Right. Great comments he made about he's embracing. He wants to play Superman for a very long time.
He wants to play Superman the rest of his life.
That's why I don't think he necessarily will be that upset, because it's like, okay, what's going to further the story? And he probably sat down with Zack Snyder and the powers that be at Warner Brothers and said, this is the direction we want to take Superman. So he's probably, okay, great. Then let's do it. So I don't think that it was reactionary to, like, some people hated it. It also made a lot of money. So they could have done a sequel and been fine, but I think this is the way they want to take the story and to further the DCU.
Like if you'd asked me, if NBC comes to me and says, "Hey John, we want you to do an entertainment talk show at 8:00," and I go, "Okay, I'll do that," and I do it at 8, and it goes fine. But then the NBC execs come to me and say, "Hey, how would you feel about having you and Kevin Smith do this show together?" I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm going to be like, hell yes, number one, because I'm going to get to do it with Kevin Smith, but also because with Kevin Smith being involved, that's going to increase the amount of appeal. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know if Cavill would have been very upset that they're bringing it, because I think he would understand that this is just going to, monstrously increase the interest from the public in the movie and get a lot more people coming to see him. So, or maybe he was a pouty little baby. I mean, I don't know Henry personally. I've only met him a few times, so who knows? Was that it?
That was it.
That was it, folks. Well, listen, it is Wednesday. I almost said Thursday. It is Wednesday, which means it's time for us to talk a little bit about Rewind. What opened this day 10 years ago, and this week 20 years ago. Rewind, of course, is brought to you by our friends at AMC Theatres. I like to call this segment our Feeling Old segment, because, wow, do we ever feel old when we look at these. So, celebrating their 10th anniversaries this week, the classic, the great, one of the greatest action films of all time, Blood Rain, ladies and gentlemen, Blood Rain. Then you get what I consider to be one of the most underappreciated comedies ever made, Grandma's Boy, and of course the horror, what's kind of become a modern cult classic, Eli Roth's Hostel. Opening 20 years ago, we've got one of the better spoofs probably ever done. Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. We've got Biodome, Dunstan Checks In, Lawnmower Man 2, Beyond Cyberspace, Eye for an Eye, and 2 If by Sea. Kristian, you look at these movies celebrating 10 and 20-year anniversaries. Which ones stand out to you?
I am furious with Ray right now. Where in the hell is Dunstan Checks In on that?
Ray,
where is Dunstan Checks In?
Maybe you couldn't even find a poster for it.
I remember seeing that movie. I worked at a movie theater back in the day, and Dunstan Checks In. It was about an orangutan who works in a hotel, so that'll tell you anything. Biodome and Don't Be a Menace. Those are the ones that stand out to me. Both guilty movie pleasures, fun. The one scene in Don't Be a Menace when you were talking earlier about seeing
greatest funny moments
that just make you kind of cry. I remember watching that movie Don't Be a Menace, and they spoofed the Boys in the Hood scene when the Cuba Gooding Jr. when he starts swinging, and someone or Sean would start swinging, and then out of nowhere, like all these kids start popping up. He starts knocking all the kids backwards, and everybody starts getting knocked over. I just started crying laughing because it was so ridiculous and a great spoof. And Biodome's another one. You know, Pauly Shore did have a few. We use him as a reference every time we want to make fun of somebody. But I'll tell you what, there are a couple movies that he did that continue to be guilty movie pleasures. One is absolutely Biodome, and others Encino Man, which
of course, Encino Man.
Eye for an Eye. I actually remember that movie. Lawnmower Man 2. Good Lord. Did that even do a theatrical release?
Yes, it did. I unfortunately saw it.
Oh, man. Was that brutal or
it
what?
was so unbelievably horrible.
Yeah, and I actually did see 2 If by Sea, and Sandy Bullock should not do a Boston accent.
Hey, look, if you thought Lawnmower Man, the first one, sucked, check out Lawnmower Man 2, because that sucks even more. That's incredible suckage.
I like the first Lawnmower Man.
The one thing I remember is a bunch of kids on a weird roller coaster in cyberspace. I mean, that's the one. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that. It's beyond dumb. Ones that stick out to me, Hostel. You know, what you might say started the whole torture porn. Yeah.
That's the first time
stuff.
I ever. The term may have been around before that.
Right.
I don't know, but that was the first time I was introduced to the term torture porn. Was that so? Eli almost created a subgenre within horror itself.
Well, it was around, but more in like the lower end horror.
Right.
This was the first big released film that just had a lot of torture, and it was really hard to watch when that guy got his Achilles heel sliced, and there was like some really horrifying stuff going on in the film. But I actually liked Hostel 2 better. As far as a film goes, I thought it was like really up the ante, so to speak. Grandma's Boy sticks out to me. That was just
I've never
really
seen it. Yeah,
really?
No, you know what?
Oh my God, it's really good.
I want to sit down and watch it with you. I seriously, let's get you and me, Mark, a couple guys watch it. Honestly, because to me, that's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah,
most,
it's very
Grandma's Boy. It's one of those ones that I had no interest in. Was in the theater, and I went one day because I honestly think me and my buddies went to go see something else and it was sold out. So he's checked out Grandma's Boy. It's Adam Sandler's crew without Adam Sandler.
Nick Swartzen stars in it. Is that it?
He's in it,
okay.
but I'm
He's a
trying to
very
remember
small
the lead
part.
guy the lead guy in it was fantastic. I can't remember his name. He's never been a lead in anything else ever again. But I'm telling you, man, that movie is so freaking funny. I was so surprised by how funny. If you have not seen Grandma's Boy, trust me, go grab it.
I know I would normally not recommend these like weird, Sandler spin-off films, but this one is incredibly funny. In fact, it's all about video game making, and this kid gets his game stolen by this other like Matrixy the guy's just doing these weird robot sounds when no one's looking.
Dresses like Neo.
Yeah, I mean
it's
really funny. And what was the other one from the 10th?
The other one from
Blood Rain.
Blood Rain.
How can you
yes.
forget that Uwe Boll classic?
It's the one that introduced most people to Uwe Boll.
Right,
yeah?
that's right. I mean, he's actually doing Rampage 3 right now, and he said, "This is my last film." He's declared that. So
my favorite thing about Blood Rain is Michael Madsen's comments of it was an abomination. I love that he called his own movie an abomination,
and that Ben Kingsley just kind of sleepwalked through it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing it. I was like, "Why is he in this?" And it's unbelievable. You're like, he's cashing a check, yo. You could just see the money while he's like pretend
Uwe
acting.
Boll had a history. He somehow gets some decent named actors. Like, what was that one in The Name of the King? He had like Ray Liotta, Jason Statham, like Mia Wasikowska, I think was in that, if I'm not mistaken.
He single-handedly, he is the guy who you could blame the video game destruction of the movies. You look at how many bad video game movies have been directed. He directed like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show now for Mailbag. Listen, if you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, just email us anytime at collidervideo@gmail.com. Now, we're going to save a few minutes at the end of the show, take some of your live Twitter questions, because, hey, we do this show live every day, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Los Angeles time. That's 2 p.m. New York time. So you can send on in your questions and tweet to us at Collider Video. That's how you get your questions on live at the end of the show. But for now, let's get to the mailbag. So, Ashley, what's in the mailbag?
AV writes, hello, I hope you guys had a great New Year's Day. Been a longtime subscriber since 2012, back in the AMC days. My question is, do you think WB will spoil more of the Batman vs. Superman movie on that special they have on January 19th, since they showed way too much on the last trailer?
Well, let me clear this up once again. I feel like I've had to spend the last couple of weeks doing this, but let me reiterate it. I don't think they showed too much. I just think they showed us the wrong things. Honestly, they showed us Doomsday. Do I wish they'd showed us Doomsday? No, but guess what? You showed us Ultron in the Age of Ultron trailer. I mean, we see the bad guys. That's not a spoiler. I didn't consider that a spoiler. I just didn't like the look of them. So it has nothing to do with that they showed it to us. I just didn't like the look of them. So that's whatever. I just think they showed us the wrong thing. I just don't think you show us, when the movie's called Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and that movie starts with Batman v Superman. That's the first thing in your title. And you show us them getting ready to work together in the trailer. Of course, we know that's what's coming, but you don't show it in the trailer. Right. So I don't think they showed us too much. I just think they showed us the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. But that being aside, so for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Warner Brothers came out and said that on December 19th, I can't remember which show it is, but they're going to be doing a little bit of a special, kind of bringing us into the world of the DC Cinematic Universe now, and they're going to be revealing some things. Do I think they're going to show us too much? I don't think they will. Because I think there's a bunch of things they should be showing us that they haven't showed us yet. I think they're going to give us a nice introduction to Leto's Joker. And I don't think that's too much. I think that's a good thing to do. You start capitalizing on the popularity of that character and get the excitement ramped up and everything for Suicide Squad. I think they're going to give us a little bit more of an insight into Batman v Superman, probably a little bit more Lex, I'm thinking at that point. So could they give away too much? Yeah, they could, but I honestly don't think they will. I think, like I said, I think there's still a lot of things that they should be showing us that they haven't yet, and I think they'll take advantage of those things. I trust them at this point anyway. Schnepp, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, when we first saw that second trailer and they showed, is she with you? I thought she was with you.
I thought she was with you.
That was where I didn't mind actually seeing Doomsday, but if they cut away to then Superman fighting Doomsday and then it ended with Batman v Superman, that would have been better than showing all of them working together and then the logo Batman v Superman comes up, because that doesn't work together, so it's a disappointment. So we know they're all going to get together. We know Wonder Woman's in the film. I'm sure the third trailer won't do that. Whatever the
it's
third
like having a movie titled. The name of the movie is Will Lisa and Bobby Hook Up? And then in the trailer showing them having sex together in a bed.
Yeah.
And then the title comes up, Will Lisa and Bobby hook up?
It looks like they just hooked up. So, yeah, I mean, I think what they'll do, they might also introduce Aquaman. They might introduce, they might show you.
See, that's one of the things they should be doing.
They might introduce, like, Flash. They might show you these other characters who are even in the movie less than Wonder Woman. I'm sure they'll set up Princess Diana a little bit. I'm sure they'll set up Lex. I'm sure they'll set up some of the, they'll do a lot of setting stuff up. It's not that long of a special, and they're also going to set up Suicide Squad. So, I mean, I'm hoping personally that they make those announcements, like announce when the Batman is coming out, when is Man of Steel 2 coming out, because those are still those floating ones where you're like, you got a Cyborg movie, but you don't have the Batman, in your 5-year plan. I think they'll probably fix that. Do you think
there's a possibility they may announce the standalone Batman films on the 19th?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying on the 19th, I think they're going to announce the Batman.
That would make a huge splash. Yeah. Kristian, what do you think they're going to do? How will they handle this?
Well, to answer, first of all, I do think there's a possibility that they spoil some more stuff or show too much. I do think they showed too much, because going off what you said as far as the Ultron comparison, Ultron was the villain. So also with the sex analogy, that's in the title. So when Ultron's in the title, I want to see Ultron. But Batman v Superman, I want to see Batman v Superman. It's cool that they fight Doomsday. I don't mind that Doomsday's in the movie, but also agreeing with you, I think that it was the wrong place to show it. Mm-hmm. And I think that the same thing goes with the three of them standing there together. Yes, and I know some of the big complaints about people complaining about it has been, well, you knew they were going to get together and team up. Yes, but I want to see how that unfolds in the film. I don't want to go into the movie already saying, there's the three of them. I know they're going to have that scene with the comedy, right? So that to me was a little.
I
too
thought
much.
the joke was funny.
But
I
it
didn't want to see it.
I didn't
but I thought
mind
was
it,
funny.
Out of
it didn't-
context,
but it
yeah.
didn't fit in the trailer.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that being said, it is, and the reason I think that all went down, the reason why it's relevant that we're talking about this, I think that they got nervous. I think that Warner Brothers got nervous, that people thought that it was just going to be these two, and I don't mean just comic book fans. I mean people outside the comic book world who are going, why is Batman fighting Superman? And they went, well, we got to show them that they're not just going to be fighting the whole movie. We want them to show that they're going to be the teams and the heroes that they love. So they threw it in there at the end. And I think that's also what could happen on the 19th.
panic.
And I think
It was panic.
that's what can happen on the 19th, because if you look as far as numbers go, maybe these guys, I don't care about the fanboys yelling about that we show too much. Look at how many views that it's got. Look at the interest in the movie right now. Let's continue to show them, and maybe there's more with the Justice League inside of that. So I think that's certainly a possibility, but I also agree with Schnepp that I think that there's going to be an announcement that we get that standalone Batman movie.
All right, folks, so I said we'd save a little bit of time for your live Twitter questions, and we're going to do that right now. You still got some time. Tweet in a question to us at Collider Video. Ashley is our gatekeeper. So, Ashley, what have you selected today?
All right, Harrison Bennett asks, what is the best example of a terrible acting performance in a great movie?
All right, this is a little bit cheating because we talked about it beforehand, but it was the one I was going to say. It is Cameron Diaz, who I enjoy. I like Cameron Diaz. But Cameron Diaz in the Martin Scorsese film, I was going to say Hoods of New York, in Gangs of New York, where especially that one was partly to blame though on miscasting. That wasn't the right role for her, and it just kind of became accentuated by the fact that she was acting along Leo DiCaprio, one of the best actors today, and Daniel Day-Lewis, who you could make an argument might be the greatest actor of all time. So you threw her in there into those deep waters in a role that wasn't really right for her in the first place. So there was that. I will also say Chris Tucker in
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element, thank you.
Oh, wow.
Chris
Come on,
Tucker,
yeah, like
yeah,
that.
it's a great movie, and I get the character that they were going for, but I thought it was poorly done.
I agree.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
him in that movie.
I agree
Yeah,
so much.
so-
He
Really?
ruins that movie for me.
Really?
Honestly, when he shows up, it's like he's in such a different film. I like his performance. If you just cut that into like Spaceballs, just throw that into some
Yeah.
comedy film.
Oh, okay.
Schnepp, what about you?
Oh, I was going to say Christoph Waltz in Big Eyes. Now, Big Eyes was an okay film, wasn't a great film, but his like comedic, like overacting ruined the film for me and made me dislike it because I was all on board with Amy Adams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With with the way she portrayed her performance, but then once Christoph Waltz, he was overacting, and I mean the guy's won 2 Oscars. He's great in all of his other films. This one, he brought what he normally brings, but in this other way that disrupted the narrative flow, at least for me, and took me out of the film every time he was in. I was like, what is it? Why is he acting like a cartoon character? So that's one for me.
Christian?
I got 2. One is Keanu Reeves in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Ooh,
Oh, good one. Good one. I like that.
I love Keanu Reeves. He's a likable bad actor, but he had no business being in that Coppola film at all. Like,
dude, I'm in Romania,
and then his hair just turns gray out of no reason. The other one is Shyamalan in Lady in the Water. Get out of there. What are you doing in your movie?
But that's a bad movie.
Not Lady.
That's a bad movie to
You mean
start.
Signs?
Not Signs.
You're talking Signs.
Not Lady in the Water.
Signs.
Signs.
I was about to say,
Are you
what?
saying Lady in the
but
Water's
I
like,
forget.
we
No, but
gotta have words.
no, because I forget that he's in.
Secret
He's in everything. No,
special
Signs.
meeting. We need to call a meeting.
Exactly. No, Signs is a movie that
Kristian Harloff, you've been called before the tribunal.
I know. I just heard the internet just scream at me once. But no, in Signs, because
Yes.
when I saw
totally.
Signs the first time, I didn't love the movie, and then I watched it again, and it's a movie that I appreciate more and more. But I can never get past him. It's just, you can see that arrogance starting to build in him.
He's in
the
that
movie.
truck, and he's like, "Just you got to take everyone to the water." You're like, "What the?" You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, not Lady in the Water.
What's next?
Christopher Michael writes, do you guys think The Conjuring 2 will be as successful as the first film?
No, I don't think it'll be as successful, but the first one was so successful, especially relative to how much effort it took them to make it, that I don't think it needs to be as successful to still be a success. So I don't think they'll necessarily recapture that lightning in the bottle that the first one did, but they don't have to, and I think they know that. So I think it will be successful. I just don't necessarily think as successful. I won't be surprised if it is. What do you think?
I think financially it will be.
You think so? Okay.
Financially, but I don't think quality wise, because I am not a horror guy, and I loved the
Conjuring's really good.
I loved that film. I think I even gave it a 5 out of 5 schmoes when I saw it. I loved that movie because it didn't have the problems that most horror films do to me. It wasn't predictable. It didn't rely on just or gore and slash film. It didn't rely on any of that stuff. It relied on a true story and the what ifs.
Totally.
And if they do that again, if they can do that, because these stories were real,
right?
And I want to see the Hayes brothers who wrote this. I don't know if they returned to write it because they did so much research and so much the way that the amount of effort and time they put into this. I'm curious if they're writing again. So I think that it'll do money wise. Yes.
What about, is James Wan directing this?
Yeah.
Then I'm 100%. I think it'll make more money. They can't do this.
No, it's so good.
I mean, but that movie, I loved that film, and I'm a giant horror fan, and that movie scared the out of me. I'm telling you, it was like
chills.
Yeah, I got chills. It was like, especially the end with the chair, and I'm like, what's going on? You know, it was so much fun to get scared, like really scared in a movie theater again, because I've seen so many bad horror films where you're like, you're just like, when is this going to end? It's garbage. Predictable, and just, and then you see this film, and it's so much fun, great cast, amazing story, spinning around. If they could recapture that with The Conjuring 2, then everyone who went and saw, I went and saw the movie 3 times in the theater. I was like, I love that film. If they capture that again, it's going to break the box office, at least beat its original one.
All right, so James Wan is returning to direct, and the Hayes are writing.
Oh, that's great.
They are writing.
Great.
All right, what's next?
And if James Wan is coming back to the genre after stepping away, I know he wanted to try other things like Furious 7. If he's coming back to the genre, there has to be something promising about this script, and I think that we're going to get a trailer tomorrow of The Conjuring 2, so I guess we'll be able to see more. All right, next question comes
Actually
from...
dropping some knowledge.
All right, Christopher Woodburn writes, your guys' pick for breakout star of 2016.
Alicia Vikander from Ex Machina and from Danish Girl.
But the 2016.
2016?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Who knows?
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I gotta see.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Have to see some films first.
Let's
switch it to 15.
Our future,
switch it to 15.
That's right. 15.
Daisy 15. Daisy Ridley.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley for sure.
Bless you.
Woo, thank you.
All right, Schnepp, I know you'll like this one. Brad Hadler writes, with the release of The Forest, do you think we will see more horror movies based on real supernatural locations?
Yeah, like I mentioned yesterday, the trees. And then I was hoping maybe Shyamalan will handle the wind.
He already has.
That's right. I know they're called The Happening. So, yeah, based on, why not have some more natural, the Arctic or whatever. Snow. Just call a movie Snow. Why not?
Walking. The old Carlin bit. I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I. All right, what's next?
All right, Jonathan Peck writes, any updates on the Tintin sequel?
This question's been around a long time. You know that first Tintin?
Loved it.
I thought it was a dumb idea, to be honest with you. And come on, it didn't sound like it. Yeah, it was a dumb idea, but it works. It's a nice little film. The problem is you're talking about Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg.
And Andy Serkis.
And Andy Serkis, but I mean, you're talking about two of the big giants, I mean, one of the all-time giants and one of the giants today, working together and trying to get their schedules lined up because they wanted to hopscotch back and forth.
Right.
This movie, you produce and I'll direct, and the next one, I'll produce and you direct. And they were supposed to do all this. And Tintin, while it did pretty good, was not like, I think, the smash success that they thought. I don't know why they thought this, but they thought just because you had Peter Jackson's name and Steven Spielberg's name, everybody would rush to see it. There'd be a big nostalgia factor. It's like, no, maybe nostalgia for my grandparents, but it wasn't just nostalgia for me and anything. So I think they wanted to do it. I think they keep saying they're planning on doing it, but as they keep saying they're planning on doing it, every other week we're hearing about Steven Spielberg's next project, and none of them have the words Tintin in it. So I have heard no update. I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't think it's going to happen, and I think that's unfortunate. But let's see. But if I had to take a guess in the dark, take a stab in the dark, I'm going to say it's not going to happen. What do you think?
I hate to agree with you on it, but I'm going to agree with you on it. I loved the first Tintin. I thought it was super underrated. And the original plan was actually Spielberg does the first, Jackson does the second, Andy Serkis directs the third.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was the plan. And another reason why I don't think, because it's taken too long, Andy Serkis is becoming very, very busy. As you know, Jackson and Spielberg obviously are as well. But then you've got the Apes franchise, Star Wars, the Jungle Book. You got all this stuff that he's doing over the next couple of years. It's going to be
Circus directing his own film, Steel Skin.
Yeah, there's so many.
And Jungle Book.
It's going to be hard to lock him down. So I don't think it's going to happen, and I would have loved to, because I actually went. I think I saw Tintin the first time in the theater like 3 times, because that movie really.
I didn't even go to see it in theaters. That's how much I thought it was a
Same
bad
here.
idea. And then I watched it afterwards. I'm like, hey, this is pretty damn good.
I got to disagree with you guys. I didn't like it.
Wow.
I thought it was just okay, and the reason is like. It's in that I think the character designs were cool. They were semi-realistic but still animated. But I felt it was so frenetic and strangely put together. It didn't feel like to me. It didn't really feel like it was directed. It felt like a committee put it together. That's what it felt like to me. And I know it says Spielberg directed it, but it feels like it was thrown to a storyboard team. And there's certain ways that animated films come together sometimes. To me, it just didn't have that heart to it. I never felt emotionally engaged.
See, because I felt that's interesting you say that, because I remember there's a scene at the very end with Tintin when he kind of jumps on this boat, and it to me felt very Last Crusade to me. I didn't feel Spielberg's stamp on Bridge of Spies the way that I felt the stamp on it on Tintin.
And just in case we've confused some of you, mentioning, yes, Jon Favreau is directing the upcoming Disney Jungle Book. There is another version of a Jungle Book coming out, and that is being directed by Andy Serkis.
But I do think that they will eventually do sequels, but I just don't think Spielberg or Jackson or Serkis will be directing them.
Right.
Why do I think that? Because they've already built all the characters. They've built that world. So if it goes straight to video, they could still finish those 2 other films. It just might not have the the budget that the first one did. But I think eventually they'll do it.
All right, what's next?
Yankee Doodle Dandy, right? Please explain how movie theaters and movie studios divide up the profits.
Okay, it's. I would have to break out an Albert Einstein quantum theory kind of chalkboard. Look, the simple answer is this: it's different for almost every movie. Studios will negotiate rates with the exhibitors, different ways at different times. If you want a general rule of thumb, though, like just general, and every movie, like I said, will be unique. General rule of thumb, here's basically what it is. At the end of the day, the theaters keep about 30% and the studios get back about 70%. That's your rough rule of thumb. Now, it's a sliding scale, though. Like in the first week of release, the studio gets this and the theaters get this. In the second week of release, the theaters will get a little bit more, the studio get a little bit less. In the third, fourth, fifth, and as the scale goes on and on, the longer a film is in a theater, the theaters get to keep a higher percentage of the money. But so if you want to just say a basic rule of thumb, when it's all said and done, roughly, it works out to be about 30%. How would you guys explain it?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, theaters have always made their money with concessions. That's where they make that flavory dough, and so that it always pays off. As long as you have a hit film, you have people, they're getting that popcorn, everybody wins.
Yeah, a movie theater owner once famously said about 5 years ago, he came out and said in this thing on CNN, he said, "Look, these are movie theaters owners. We're not actually in the movie business. We're in the candy business," right. Which is really true, because that's really where all their money comes from. So when you walk in, if you're wondering why it costs $6 to buy a big thing of Coke, is because this multi-million-dollar facility you're in with all the stuff going on, what is paying for it is not really that ticket you bought. What's paying for that stuff is the popcorn you're buying, is the soda you're buying. So it's that's why you see that happening.
I'd love to see what the concession sales were for some theaters with Star Wars.
I was going to say Star Wars. Their deal with Star Wars is, from what I read, is the Disney got 90% and the theater got 10 for the first week.
Phantom Menace theaters got nothing. Wow. That's the deal Lucasfilm worked out at the time. That theaters got nothing of the ticket purchase
and
price.
they were like, "Please give us the film," because concession
it packed out the theaters. Yeah.
Right. I know. I mean, because popcorn and soda, that's like really cheap to make. They make their money, so you can't get mad. I remember people would get mad. Why are they spend? Why am I spending so much money on popcorn? Because that's how the theaters stay in business. So that's one of those things.
All right, last question of the day.
All right, Julianne Selesny writes, "Who is your favorite non-native English-speaking actor/actress?"
Say that again.
Roberto Benigni.
Non-native English-speaking actor/actress.
Non-native
English second language.
Yes, second language.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads is great.
Mads is my favorite.
Christoph Waltz is great. I go back to Roberto Benigni is another great one.
Marion Cotillard.
Marion Cotillard's very good. I don't know if I put her on the same level as Christoph Waltz.
I do.
Actually, there's no
both Oscar winners.
Yeah. All right, folks. That will do it for this installment of Collider Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films playing at our friends over at AMC Theatres. Head on over to www.amctheatres.com for all of your theater, showtime, and of course your movie ticket information. And make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, keeping you up to date on everything we got going on over here at Collider Video. I want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. First of all, sitting on my left, Mr. Jon Schnepp. Schnepp, where can people find you and Gizmo?
Hey, me and Gizmo, you can follow us at Jon Schnepp just on Twitter and Instagram. You get my film, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, by going to TDOSLWH.com.
And of course, over here on my right, Mr. Kristian Harloff. Kristian, where can people find you?
Well, on Twitter and Instagram at Kristian Harloff. And then the full council is back this Thursday. Hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Ask them your questions. It'll be myself, John, Mark, and Tiffany. We're all back, and we will be talking about some Rogue One stuff that's happened this week.
And of course, our lovely host today. It's Wednesday, so of course she's donning pink. Miss Ashley
Name
Mova.
that
Ashley, where can
movie.
people find you online?
On Twitter and on Instagram at Ashley Mova. Happy Wednesday, guys.
And one special thanks to Dennis and Ray and Jonathan and Wendy, all behind the scenes. And special thanks to you guys for joining us. Make sure you leave your comments and thoughts on any or all the topics we discussed here today in the comments section below. You, of course, can follow me on my Facebook and on Twitter at John Campea. And make sure to check out my first novel, The Pride, coming out soon. I will keep you updated with where you can order it and everything like that. But once again, keep your eye open for The Pride. That'll do it for us, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, bye-bye.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.